we're going to talk about a ficus plant. A ficus plant, well, it's kind of a tree. A ficus tree, it may look like a basic plant with narrow and droopy glossy green leaves, but it's really a tropical specimen that has very specific growing requirements. While it is a little bit finicky, few plants are quite as flexible as the ficus. The plant requires light and well-draining soil and can be grown indoors or outdoors, but they prefer indoors. The sap of the tree is toxic to humans and pets. I don't go around trying to get sap out of mine. Sometimes called a weeping ficus, or even a fig tree or a weeping fig. It's related to figs, although the houseplants don't produce any figs. Its botanical name is Ficus Benjamina, and it is a perennial plant. Obviously, if it lives in my house as a house plant. And I'm showing you two ficus trees that I have in my house. The tallest, biggest one is easiest to care for because it's not real. It is an artificial ficus tree. However, my smaller one is real, and I got it when it was small, about less than a foot tall. And as you can see now, it's like probably three feet tall. It's a good-sized indoor tree size. Ficus trees can be pruned to leaf drop if they're in drafty or cold conditions and they don't like to be moved. They require adequate light, warmth, and humidity, and where I've got mine, they get the warmth, not so much the light. Well, they're in front of the window, but the Venetian blind keeps out part of the light, and it makes it a very much of a not a direct light, but more of a light that goes through the curtains. But what I read about them say that they prefer a bright light, but only acclimated plants can handle direct sun. So they do appreciate being moved outside in the summer, but not to place them in direct sunlight. I have never taken mine out in the summer because a bright direct light will scald the leaves and cause leaf loss. They need well-draining soil, fertile soil-based potting mixes should work. And mine's been in the pot that it's in. It's in a small pot. It's probably root bound, but I'm not inclined to change out the pot at this point in time. It says to avoid using soils that are for roses or azaleas, since they're more acidic. So it does not need the more acidic soil. Overwatering can be a problem for it. So water it only when the first 2 inches of the soil are very dry. Determine if the soil is dry by sticking your index finger halfway into the soil and water the ficus evenly throughout the summer by giving it water until it begins to run out of the drain holes at the bottom. Remove excess water so that the tree is not sitting in moisture. Reduce the amount of watering in the winter. In dry homes, provide plenty of ambient moisture by misting often. That's something I haven't done with mine. It seems to be happy, nevertheless. When ficus trees are planted outdoors, you could water them deeply once or twice a week with about 1.5 to 2 inches of water, and only when the top 2 inches of the soil are dry. In my climate, I cannot plant it outside. It would certainly die. Need to try to keep my hand from, if I put my hand in front like that, you can't see me. Okay, the plants can't tolerate low temperatures or drafts, so maintain a temperature above 60 Fahrenheit at all times, indoors and outdoors. But they will do much better when the temperature is above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So mine's good that way. We keep our house warm. Any cold drafts from windows, doors, or air conditioning units can cause harm to them. They like a relatively humid environment. Fertilize with slow-release pellets at the beginning of the growing season. They are rapid growers and will benefit from monthly fertilization in the fall and winter. Excuse me, that should be in the spring and summer, and only once every 2 months in the fall and winter. For the amount and application process, follow whatever it says on the label of your fertilizer. And there's different types of ficus trees. There's the Benjamin Starlight, which is a variegated version. And there's Elastis, which is the rubber tree, really. It has glossy leaves. And there's a Lyrate, which is an ornamental fig leaf. It has large violin-shaped leaves. The one I have is just a regular old Benjamin, I think. Benjamina. Prune your indoor ficus tree to maintain its shape and prevent it from touching the ceiling. I have never pruned mine, and I think it looks pretty, actually. I don't know, I'll have to take a look at it at some point and see if I want to prune it, but I'm thinking probably not. Pruning should take place in the winter if I decide to do it while it's not actively growing, and to wear gloves and use sterilized sharp pair of pruning scissors. Cut back just before a node so that new growth can sprout. If your ficus tree is overgrowing and becomes leggy, don't be afraid to trim it back. New leaves will quickly sprout. And propagating ficus trees, yes, they can be. I propagated a little tree in the past, and I didn't take good enough care with it, and it didn't continue to live. However, I now have a cutting, and you'll see it here, that I put it in water, and it grew roots and looks quite nice. So I'm thinking at some point I need to get that planted in soil. So to do the, let's see, what does this say? It says seeds can be tough to germinate. Mine has not produced any kind of bloom that will, where am I at? That will generate seeds. With a sterilized pair of shears, cut a stem section from the plant at least 6 inches long, and make sure the cutting has a woody base and a green growth at the tip. Dip the bottom in cutting rooting hormone and root the ficus in an 8-inch pot with drainage holes. Okay, so I didn't do mine that way. I did mine in water. I took the cutting and I put it in water, and I waited for it to make roots. It says to cover the cutting with a clear plastic bag to keep the soil moist, and to cut a tiny slit or two at the top so the plant can breathe. Roots will be strong in 90 to 100 days, at which time you can take off the plastic covering and transplant into a pot in the spring. So a healthy ficus will rapidly outgrow its pot and your house. And I think mine is root bound, because it really has not grown a whole lot from, well, if I prune it, it will grow, I'm sure. I need to check to see if the roots are coming out of the bottom. Repotting is best in springtime, however, when the plant is growing. When repotting, use a pot of any material that is 2 to 3 inches larger than the one that it was in, and has plenty of drainage holes. So I will have to do that in the spring. My plant is indoors, so I don't have to worry too much about pests or plant diseases. If my plant was outside, I would have to worry about that. Some common problems with the trees are losing its leaves. And that can happen to indoor or outdoor plants. Drafts, pests, underwatering, overwatering, too little light, low humidity, change of temperature. Okay. Q&A. The question is, are ficus trees and fig trees the same thing? And there's a confusion and overlap between the two. That's probably because the ficus plant is in the fig genus. Some types of ficus trees are grown as fig trees and produce well-known fruit. But the Ficus Benjamina plant is a tropical evergreen and does not bear fruit. Question number 2, how long will it live? Kept under the right condition, a ficus tree can live 3 or more decades. Why doesn't it like to be moved around? It's very sensitive to temperature and light changes in its environment. That's why if you move it around, it will go into shock and lose its leaves. So try your hardest to keep your plant in one spot and don't move it around. Why does it grow so tall when planted in the ground outdoors? Because it has a very strong, deep, and spreading root system that helps it grow large. That's all for the question and answers. You can find more information just by doing a Google search on your computer. So that is my little lesson today on my ficus tree. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a chance to do something with your houseplants today. May God bless you as you do that. May His love shine deep into your hearts. And I will see you on my next video.